Music is one of those things that you have to have. I mean, music is inspired by boredom, I think. And if you don't have time to be bored, then you don't really think about wanting to do music.
That's a lot of creative output.
It's a lot of...
Yeah.
And actually, this job is actually better if you're able to be bored. If you're a professor, if you're able to be bored sometimes, it helps with the creativity. Because you need time to do something else. So, I mean, I get my best ideas in the shower. I get my best ideas walking my dog. I get my best ideas, doing work around the house, mowing lawn, riding around in the riding tractor, I've done some home renovations and things like that. You have to do something besides science.
Welcome to the Navigating Nano podcast, where we explore the multidisciplinary world of nanotechnology with distinguished professors and researchers. Join us as we sit down and talk about their cutting-edge research, career paths, and expert opinions on the expanding world of nanotechnology. This week we are joined by Dr. Joseph C. Furgal, professor of chemistry at Bowling Green State University, who specializes in silicon-based materials for environmental remediation. He sits down with MRS to talk about being a professor before the glory of tenure, unexpected career paths, and music and science have a lot more in common than you think. Join us as we navigate Nano.
Hi everyone, welcome to Navigating Nano. My name is Anjali Kumari, and with me I have my co-host Isaac Fernandez, and today we have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Joseph Furgal. Dr. Furgal is an assistant professor in the Department of Chemistry at Bowling Green State University, located in Bowling Green, Ohio. So our first question for you is, what are some early inspirations for your interest in science?
Well, as a child, I tried to blow up anything I could. So I was always, so when I was a really little kid, I would try to make random things out of laundry detergent. So I would take laundry detergents and mix things together and try to make these cakes. Okay. I don't know why I wanted to do any of this, but I did this. And so in my parents' basement, I had like these little cakes of laundry detergent all over the place and
I'm
things.
sure they loved that.
Oh yeah, yeah. And then there was another instance where I was interested in electronics, and my dad had brought home this like box that had four different colored lights in it. A green light, a red light, a blue light, and a yellow light. And I thought the lights were a little dim. So I thought, well, how can I make this brighter? So I was like, well, I can put another plug on it. So I put another plug, and then I put the two plugs into the wall at the same time. Needless to say, it did not work out very well.
Yeah. It's like when I shoved a pair of scissors in the outlet.
Yeah, that was the first time I electrocuted myself. Wouldn't be the last. So yeah, but there was that, and all through high school, we were always trying to make explosives and like wheelbarrows, and we would take dry ice in like water bottles like these. In a swimming pool, and we would put the dry ice in there, and then we close it, and then we chuck them into the yard and watch them explode. It's a lot of fun. If you've never done it before, just be careful, because I also had some nice bruising on my chest from one that exploded at my chest. So be careful with it if you do it. But yeah, so I've always been kind of a little bit adventurous in the scientific aspect. Yeah, that was kind of the early inspiration. However, all that being said, I graduated high school and wanted to become a music major. So, so I got into Wayne State University in Detroit as a music major, and was going to major in percussion.
Wow.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Were you in the drum line in high school?
I was. Yeah, I played the quads or tenors. Yeah. Yeah. So then I was doing that, and then out of the blue, I get this offer from Detroit Mercy, and they want me to come for a visit. And I'm like, okay, because I just randomly applied there. It was close to home. I was like, I'll apply. And so then I go there and I meet with a chemist. Like they just randomly, I don't even think I said I wanted to be a chemistry major or anything. They just assigned me to meet with a chemist. And half an hour with this guy, and I was like, I want to be a chemist.
Yeah.
It's amazing how that can happen.
Yeah.
Right? You just have no idea what you want to do. And so I dropped being a music major and decided to go into chemistry.
That's awesome. Was there anything in particular he like said to you that was like, this is why?
I don't even remember the conversation at all.
Yeah, just the
I
vibe.
just know the vibe. And that was enough that it inspired me to want to be a chemist.
That's awesome. Heck yeah.
But I mean, in undergrad, I was in the pep band, so I still played music and things, so at least I got that.
Yeah.
But it's a better career than being a musician. It's a more reliable career than being a musician, so.
It's nice.
Although I have friends that did both, so I had undergrad degrees in music and in some science. Actually, my high school band teacher had a degree in physics and in music education.
I've met quite a few people that were doing kind of the same thing. I mean, it's just because sound waves and everything, like you get interested in more of the science behind sound, which is cool. So yeah.
Yeah, so my goal was actually not necessarily to be a performance person, but was audio engineering.
Okay, cool.
But at Wayne State, you had to be in the music program, and the audio engineering was like a subset of that. So you had to do performance and also do the audio.
Gotcha. Yeah.
You couldn't just go into the audio. So,
Yeah.
so I had to go there. I went there and auditioned and everything.
Wow.
Yeah, I had
That's
auditioned
intense.
for the program. Yeah.
Yeah. Dang. That's cool.
It was also attractive, the fact that Detroit Mercy gave me almost a full ride scholarship to go there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah. You know, money talks. Money talks. That's actually been my meandering direction ever since, except for one time. So when I graduated my PhD, I chose a postdoc over an industrial offer. And I don't know, I regret that sometimes to this day.
Why do you regret that? Do you think like?
Well, because my offer then was more money than I make now. And that was 7 years ago. Okay? So that means, think of how much more I'd be making now
Yeah.
versus what I made that time 7 years ago. So I figured I'm probably $150,000 in the hole because of that decision.
Dang.
But money's not everything, right?
That's true. That's true.
you know.
That's true. So another question for you is kind of what's like the most fundamental piece of knowledge that you think about, like a line from something you read or heard, you know, that is just like a constant like motto for you.
I don't know if you're gonna like it.
Okay.
But my internal motto is that chemistry is bullshit and magic.
Hey, okay. I kind of like that. I kind of like that.
That is my motto.
Is there somewhere where you heard that, or is that just your internal?
No.
voice?
So we actually developed it. So I did an REU type experience at the University of Illinois, and that became the motto of our group. So there was 6 of us who did this little thing.
Yeah.
We actually had T-shirts made that said that on the back of it. So that became our little motto, just because of our experience there. Because we were just like, we don't understand why this is working.
Yeah.
There's no way it should be working.
Yeah.
You know, kind of thing. And we're just like, yeah, I think that overall chemistry is just bullshit and magic. It's just a form of alchemy, essentially, right? So
I think that's applicable to a lot of life. It's just bullshit and magic.
yeah. And anybody who tells you otherwise is fooling themselves.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
So I guess a follow-up question to what you previously answered was, is there another passion that you rely on to balance like your work life? I mean, I know you mentioned you tried to major in music, but do you still use music to balance out your work life?
not very much. Yeah, my work-life balance is negative at this point. So, I mean, I do some hobbies. I don't play much music anymore. I don't know. I just don't feel inspired to do it.
Yeah.
Most of the time, music is one of those things that you have to have. I mean, music is inspired by boredom, I think. And if you don't have time to be bored, then you don't really think about wanting to do music.
That's a lot of creative output.
It's a lot of...
Yeah.
And actually, this job is actually better if you're able to be bored. If you're a professor, if you're able to be bored sometimes, it helps with the creativity. because you need time to do something else. So, I mean, I get my best ideas in the shower. I get my best ideas walking my dog. I get my best ideas, doing work around the house, mowing lawn, riding around in the riding tractor, I've done some home renovations and things like that. You have to do something besides science. But ever since I had a child, it's just been nothing else.
Yeah. How old are they?
She's 17 months old.
Oh, wow. Dang. Well, congratulations. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
so yeah, she's a lot.
What's her name?
Aubrey.
Aubrey.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful name. I like that.
But yeah, before that, I spent a lot more time doing renovations and things.
Nice.
I enjoy that. Totally renovated my whole house. Redid the kitchen. Redid bathrooms.
Yeah,
We
that's
did all the
work.
floors.
That's work.
When I was
You were
in-
all DIY?
All DIY. When I was in grad school, I actually bought a house.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bought a house, and then, well, that was a good time to buy a house because it was right after
Yo.
right during the recession. So I actually paid $75,000 for this house in grad school
Where were you?
in Ypsilanti, Michigan.
Okay.
So just next to Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Gotcha.
I did my PhD at Michigan, and so I bought it during my third year of grad school. I was like, I'll buy a house and flip it. Well, rent was so crazy expensive.
Yes.
My mortgage ended up being like
Less
3/4 of rent. So, it was a no-brainer. And that summer, my boss actually had me live in his house.
Oh, wow.
So he went on a sabbatical to Israel. And he's like, I don't want my kids living in my house while I'm gone. So can you live in my house? So he paid me to live in his house for a summer,
That's pretty lit.
which was great because
Yeah.
that gave me the opportunity to actually work on the house and kind of rip it to shreds before putting it back together. My wife was in Colorado at the time, so it actually worked out because I was by myself living in my boss's house.
That's pretty
So that way when she came back, the house was mostly done.
Wow.
Yeah, so she got lucky. But one of the smartest decisions I ever made was buying the house in grad school because I bought it for $75,000, put like $20,000 into it, sold it for $185,000.
Wow. That's amazing.
5 years later, it recently just resold again for $260,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
The same house I bought for $75,000 in 2013 is ridiculous.
Why didn't you keep it for yourself?
Well, I didn't know the market was going to do that.
You're like, let me get out of it while I got it.
That's what I thought. I'm like, the market's not going to go up any more than that. And then it just pandemic happened and it just went
Yeah.
ballooned. Who knew the pandemic was going to happen? I sold it in 2018.
Oh, wow. Right before.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, so I had no idea.
Dang.
Yeah, see, I could have been.
You could
If I
have
would've
even more.
I thought I'd just paid the mortgage on that for another 2 years.
Wow.
Would have been in great shape. But yeah, the smartest decision I ever made. Buying a house. Instead of paying all that money in rent. Rent in Ann Arbor is like $1,500 a month now for a one-bedroom apartment.
Yo, we're feeling it here.
I'm not that far away from
Not that far away from
No.
that. Yeah. My mortgage, I have a house on 5 acres in the country. My mortgage is like $1,200. Dang.
Got 1,100 square feet for that.
Yeah. I mean, I have a 1,600 square foot house and then 3 barns essentially. So
Do y'all have any animals? Do you have
just a dog and a cat right
Just a
now.
dog and a cat?
Yeah, we have a horse barn that has
Oh.
horse stalls, but no time for a horse right now. So
Yeah. You thinking in the future, maybe?
maybe our school actually has an equestrian team.
Wow.
You know,
Nice.
fancy, right?
Yeah. Have you ever gone horseback riding?
I have.
Nice. I just went for the first time this year.
Yeah.
I was so scared of horses. They're scary creatures.
They
They're
can
big.
They can be scary creatures.
But they're fun. I love horses.
Yeah.
Yep. I force them to go. Yeah.
Do you have any ultimate goals for yourself? Some long-term goals that kind of keep you motivated?
Long-term goals. I'd like to not have to keep working when I'm above 65 years old.
I respect that. Yeah.
So actually, one of my colleagues in my department, he's like, I'm just trying to make enough money so I can get out of here, so I can go paint. This is what he told me.
That's beautiful.
And
That's my goal in
yeah,
life.
and it's okay. I mean, it's fine once you get tenured. It's not that bad of. I mean, it doesn't have to be that bad of a job. The job is as bad as you want it to be at that point.
It's kind of how grad school is too.
Yeah. So pre-tenure, it's terrible. Being a professor is pretty terrible. You're always, it's like a continuation of grad school.
Yeah.
I compare being a professor to essentially being a grad student, a postdoc, a manager, a accountant,
Yep.
and a administrative assistant all at the same time.
Yeah.
You're all of those things. And then you got to write grants too.
Then you have to be creative and
And you have to be creative,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. That's on top of that. All the administrative things that fit into those buckets. So yeah. So eventually, yes, I would like to not have to do all of those things. That would be cool.
That's nice.
I'd be perfectly happy, doing woodworking or metal shop or doing welding or, doing some random hobby like that.
Yeah.
That's
awesome.
I've often thought about quitting being a professor and becoming an electrician.
Electrician, you'll pay well.
Make more money than I make now.
Yeah.
Hey, but your students will cry.
Yeah, they cry anyways. Yeah, that was a tough one. This past year, I actually had to throw out a student. That was hard. She came in and then was in remedial classes, so she didn't do well in the entrance exams, and then she got D's in the remedial classes. So there was no way she could even succeed in the program. And of course, the nice graduate college decides, oh, we're not going to throw her out. That's your job.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah, so that was really brutal. And so I had to deal with her crying in my office for multiple days for like hours at a time.
I mean,
That was tough.
That was really tough.
And she was international from India.
Yeah.
So she had to get deported essentially.
It's brutal.
Yeah, it was hard. I didn't want to have to do it,
Yeah.
but I didn't really have a choice.
Yeah, it didn't seem like the grad school was giving you a choice. They were just like, you have to do this.
Oh, no, they said that, if you want to just vouch for her that she's going to do it, then you can keep her for another semester. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't have high hopes that she can get past D's in organic chemistry and physical chemistry. So
That's tough.
it was tough.
Yeah.
That was one of the hardest things I've had to do since I've been a professor.
Sounds like it, yeah, because you have an impact on somebody's entire life, and that's a big responsibility.
I mean, you have a lot of responsibility anyways, because you're essentially responsible for the lives of the future lives of 5, 6, 7 people at a time. So
Yeah. How many people are in your lab?
So I guess technically we have 5 current PhD students, but I'll probably have another one come December.
Gotcha.
And then I have 5 undergraduates,
Okay.
all of which have been really good lately.
That's awesome.
Yeah, been happy with the undergrads.
Do you feel like there's a pretty good turnover from undergrad to grad? Do they come back or do they stay?
So that's been changing. Yeah. So when I started, we didn't have very many that stayed.
Okay.
Lately, we've been getting 2 to 3 a year that have been staying for their PhD.
Awesome.
Actually,
That's beautiful.
I don't know why,
They
but
just like it.
They like
I guess they like it. They want to stay. So yeah, I have, and it's not just my lab. It's been multiple labs that have had this happen. So I have one student who did undergrad research with me who's now in my group.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Although we also get quite a few that did not do research as undergrads that decide that they want to do a PhD and stay.
Yeah.
So
I love that. That's awesome.
actually, most of them have been that way,
Interesting.
surprisingly.
Maybe they're just not burnt out of the research. They're like, hey, we can do it.
I have one undergrad right now that wants to do an MD PhD. So he's been nominated for a Goldwater scholarship. And you want to suffer, don't you?
Yeah. We're both doing MD PhDs, right?
Both are?
No,
No,
MS
oh, you
PhD.
wanted to do MD PhD.
I wanted to do
though.
MD
I'm
PhD
sorry.
initially, but then I decided PhD it is. I was just drawn by JSMN, so that kind of flipped the whole switch.
Yeah, isn't that like an 8 to 10 year commitment?
It's 12, including
12?
your after you get your
your
medical
residency
degree,
and
your
everything.
residency counts for like 3 to 4 more years.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
That would kill me.
I mean, it's not that
Hey,
much.
everyone, it's like going through life. If you get on a consistent pace, like it'll be over before you know it. But if you struggle through it,
It's not that
decades.
different. It's not that different than you do your PhD, you do a postdoc, you're an assistant
Yeah.
professor.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Being an assistant professor is like being a resident. It really is.
That's a good way to put
You
it,
know,
because they're both 12 years.
You get worked to death.
Yes.
You get low pay.
Yes.
It's pretty much all the same. You know, you have to prove yourself that you're worthy.
Yeah.
You know, of having a job for your life. It's essentially the same thing. It's not that much different. Anybody who thinks that getting a PhD versus an MD is that much different, it's really not. You know, an MD it takes you until you're almost 40 years old by the time you really make any good money.
Yeah.
So.
Alright, well, leading into the next question, that's sort of going from your inspiration and everything. When you face a writer's block, how do you overcome it? Especially like a scientific writing block.
Oh, you just get out of there. Don't sit there and keep trying to do it.
Okay.
If you get a writing block, do something else.
Okay.
Absolutely. Do not sit there and keep trying to go. It will never end well.
So what do you think like is the
Go for a walk.
Yeah.
Go annoy your grad students. It's always a good one. Talk to them.
Yeah.
Do something else. I mean, just even if you just like web surfing or do something just completely unrelated to it.
That's good. Okay.
You know, because if you have a writer's block, sometimes you can get inspiration if you go to a seminar or something too.
Right.
Sometimes that happens. Most of the time I'm spaced out in seminars.
Yeah.
So if you were
fair
spaced out in my
enough.
seminar, I completely understand. Most of the time I'm just staring at it. I'm like thinking about something else, and I'm just there.
Yes.
I wonder what'll happen here. I do that.
But isn't that good inspiration? You're bored.
That's
You're
what I mean. That's an inspiration, right? That gives you time to think about something else. What's ruined that is Zoom.
Yeah. I was zoomed in today, just doing things around the house.
The problem is that's the problem because.
But I was paying more attention because I wasn't bored. You know,
No,
I was occupied.
But Zoom actually ruined it for me because then you're like, oh, I don't have to watch this. I can listen and I can do all these other things. while I'm doing. But that really ruins the creativity.
Yes.
Fair enough. That's I respect that.
Yeah, so absolutely do something else. Go for a drive. Go for a walk. Go to the zoo.
Paint.
Paint. Yeah, just do something else that you're interested in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I know you spoke to that one guy when you first got into undergrad that kind of got you on the path of chemistry, but is there anybody else in your life that you've spoken to that completely changed the way you thought about science and like its impact on the world?
Not really.
No?
No. Sort of. I guess sort of. I have another story for you.
Okay.
So the way I ended up where I ended up is because I went to grad school. And the only reason I really went to grad school is because I learned that they paid me to go to school.
Yes.
You know?
Big incentive.
I'm like, oh, I get paid to go to school. So anyways, I was like, oh, I'm attracted to that. It was hard to get a job anyways because it was 2010 and there was nothing going on. And so I went to grad school. And so I started my first semester and I was taking this materials chemistry class.
Okay.
So it's essentially like solid state chemistry. It's a very inorganic focused class. And so there was another guy in that class who was doing a master's degree in the group that essentially all that sesquioxane chemistry came from.
Okay.
So one of the projects in that class was to make Wikipedia pages, and by chance I ended up in his group. So we ended up in the same group together and one other person as well. And so he suggested, oh, we should make a Wikipedia page for sesquioxanes, or at least improve it, because there was like nothing there.
Yeah.
So if you go to the Wikipedia page for sesquioxanes, we wrote most of it.
That's awesome.
Actually, as students. So we did that, and he was telling me about the group and telling me about these cages, and I was like, these are really interesting. They're really cool. They can do lots of things. So then he's like, oh, my advisor is giving this internal seminar. It was like in the middle of the semester or something. And so I went to that seminar. And the professor just sold it to me. I don't know. sold it that so I guess it's sort of answering your question.
Yeah.
He sold it to me that these things can answer lots of problems, right?
Yeah.
So he really sold it to me. These are really cool systems. So I essentially had to develop a new PhD path because I had not considered doing that.
Yeah.
So I was doing a rotation in one group.
What year were you in at the time?
First year.
First year. Okay.
Yeah, so I was
It's a good
first
time to
year.
happen.
Yep. But I had plans to do it. So Michigan does full semester rotations. So I was in a rotation for one lab. So I didn't yet choose my second semester rotation.
Gotcha.
So I had a different plan for what I was going to do, but that changed it. So then I went and talked to him after that seminar. And he's like, oh, you're interested in this. You should join my group.
Yeah.
We had a challenge, though, because I was in chemistry and he was in material science. So, and he had been banned from chemistry. He used to have an appointment in
He
chemistry.
was banned from chemistry?
Yeah.
What did he do?
Now that's a more interesting story right there.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues there. We won't get into that.
Okay.
But he offended the chair and a lot of other things. So anyways, he had some problems with that. But anyway, so he had this project that was a joint collaboration between him and a physical chemist. So they were already collaborating as part of this DOE center.
Okay.
So they had a DOE EFRC center and for these solar materials. And so he's like, oh, I can't take you directly, but you can work for this other professor that we're doing collaboration with and also work for me. So we did this developed this joint PhD project. So I was my own collaborator. So I did both synthesis of silsesquioxane-based materials and I did ultra-fast laser spectroscopy.
Wow.
Essentially on the other side. So we did that and I did the rotation and somehow miraculously decided to stay, even though working for both of them was terrible.
Were they just like very...
They're very strong people. We'll just say that.
I respect that
Yeah.
description.
So they're just they are right, everybody else is wrong kind of people. Okay. You run into a lot of those at big R1 institutions.
Yeah.
There are a lot of those. So anyways, they butted heads the entire PhD. Most of the time I just let them fight with each other and just kind of stayed under the radar.
That's good. keeps
It was
them
also
off of
nice
you.
that the two departments were on different campuses. So like kind of here where you have a separate campus. So at Michigan, engineering is in its own campus. So I most of the time just spent my time in engineering and only went to chemistry when I had to do spectroscopy.
Nice.
So then I could just kind of hide. And whenever one was mad at me, I'd just go to the other one and just
You really had it made in that
Good
way.
strategy.
That is good.
Yeah, so I did a lot of that. Did a lot of under the radar. But yeah, so we did that Wikipedia page, and that kind of got me into that group. And then, yeah, everything just took off. And I really enjoyed working with silicon chemistry after that.
Awesome.
And there's not very many silicon chemists in the world.
Yeah.
So
Seems like it's great, but it's surprising because of how prevalent it is in our lives.
yeah, it's interesting. Now people actually, I get emails because people are looking for silicon chemists.
Yeah. I'm sure.
So they contact me for PhD students because they need a silicon chemist.
Yeah.
Because there's seriously like 10 people in the country that do actual like synthesis of silicon-based materials. There's a lot of people that use them.
Yeah.
You know, sort of take something that's already been made and sort of use it in an application. There's a lot of that. But people that actually develop methods of making silicon-based materials, very, very, very few people that do that.
Interesting.
So I have another question for you. So you work a lot in environmental remediation and protection, right? And has that always been your passion, or is this more recent development?
Much more recent.
Okay.
Yeah, so all my original stuff was in solar cell development, organic hybrid solar cell materials. And then when I started my academic career, I actually wanted to do my two projects that I pitched. One of them was photo self-healable materials. It's sort of environmental in terms of, polymer upcycling. And then the other one was actually in chiral separation materials. It's actually separating, organic molecules by their handedness. That project never really panned out. But what you find is that most of the project that you actually pitch when you do your interview don't actually work out. You end up doing something totally different.
Yeah.
Like the whole sponge project was just because DARPA was interested in these actuatable materials for soft robotics. So I put together an application for that, and it didn't get funded because I submitted it in December of my first year.
Yeah.
But they found it interesting, so I kind of just kept going with that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, the environmental thing kind of just happened. And the microplastics stuff actually happened just because I got connected with some people in biology and geology at BGSU, and they were kind of working more in that sort of harmful algal bloom, toxic pollutants in Lake Erie kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I kind of found a niche that I could fit into based on my expertise was in this like biosolids microplastics research. So
Are you going to continue it long term, or is it more like you want to move?
I have no
to something
idea.
else?
If I can find somebody to fund it, then yes. If not, then no.
Okay.
I'm now going towards NIH because I have a proposal that seems like it should get funded from NIH,
Awesome.
which is actually related to my first rotation in grad school.
Oh, wow.
Surprisingly enough.
Full circle.
Yeah. So one of my colleagues from when I was doing that rotation is now a professor at the University of Georgia, and she continued that stuff. But then she did a seminar at Bowling Green, and then she's like, "Oh, we should be able to use your materials for this."
Yeah.
So that's all in nitric oxide releasing polymer systems for like catheters.
Interesting.
So essentially to prevent blood clots.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like I'll probably get funded for NIH, and I never would have ever expected to get NIH money. But essentially, you just do whatever somebody will fund you for. So one of the things they make you believe as a professor is you have freedom to do whatever you want, right? Mm-hmm. You're like, oh, I'm interested in this, and I want to do this. That's not truth. Mm-hmm. Really, you have to do whatever anybody's interested in funding you for, right? So say you want to do this, but nobody wants to fund it.
You can't do it.
Well, then you can't do it, or you have to do it on the side kind of thing, It can't be your main avenue of research.
Do you find that you're able to kind of fit in those mini interests into actual funded projects, or is it more difficult?
Usually, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found that you can do that a lot. So I kind of tacked in the environmental stuff into the actuator sponge systems.
Okay. Gotcha.
Pretty well. Yeah, so
Awesome.
that's all combined funded with NSF. So yeah, usually you can find little tidbits that you can work in and find some relation that you can kind of torque it in a little bit.
It's fun. It kind of lets you be creative and puzzly about it. Be like, how can I do this?
Yeah, the other thing you do is just have undergrads work on these projects. I have, my undergrads are inundated with projects actually right now because I have far more projects than I could ever write grants for.
Wow. I'm sure they love that though. I'm sure they love to just be like, oh, here's something to work on.
Oh yeah, they're having fun.
That's
they're
awesome.
having the time of their lives.
Yeah.
They're ridiculous. I'm telling you, I've never had such an interesting group of undergrads. So.
That's amazing though. I think that's a lot of spirit right there. That's where you get a lot of creativity.
Oh, there's definitely spirit. Definitely spirit. Yeah.
I got one final one for you. What's the most beautiful thing you've seen, heard, or witnessed?
The most beautiful thing. Scientifically or just
just in life?
In life.
Maybe let's do one of each, both.
Yeah, we can do one of each for sure.
That's a loaded question.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And try to think of things that aren't easy answers. So, right? I guess it could be the most excited moment.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
For sure. Yeah, whatever is just, that inspiration moment that life is beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most exciting moment in my lab was when we got the silicon to depolymerize. That was probably the biggest thing there. Better than anything that I've witnessed in grad school and anything like that. So
Was it just something that you never thought would work? It was like,
well, there's something that my advisor had led me to believe that it shouldn't work.
so you had to like fight against your own bias.
So you had to fight against your own bias because he always believed that the siloxane itself would not be essentially the silicon in silicone was not positive enough because it didn't have an electron withdrawing group on it to be attacked effectively by the fluoride.
Gotcha. So it kind of went against the theory.
So it went against what he had told me for 5 years, essentially.
Wow. And he seems like a strong personality.
He has a strong personality. I mean, he's also an expert in silicon chemistry.
Yeah.
I mean, he's one of the world's experts in silicon chemistry. So.
Wow. Yeah, I'm sure that was a beautiful moment where you felt like, this is mine. This is me.
The other one is when your first student gets a job, actually.
Wow. That's
So you feel that you have really contributed to that.
That's excellent. I love that.
It's also, I mean, it's a beautiful moment when your daughter's born, except for the fact
I was literally like, that's what I had in my head, but I knew, like...
but that was a whole difficult situation in itself because it was very stressful. So that was not... So she was premature. She was born with meningitis and was in the NICU for 3 weeks. It was just not an enjoyable time. So you kind of rule out the fact that it was very, pleasant. So, so that kind of ruins that. I don't know. I would say I'm a very realistic person and not very optimistic. So
I respect that. I think most scientists are like that.
You'd be surprised. I meet a lot of very super optimistic scientists. And I'm thinking to myself, man, you're so optimistic. Yeah. I mean, it has advantages. Yeah. If you're so optimistic, then you never take any bad information badly, right?
Yeah.
I've gotten to the point where anytime you submit for funding or anything like that, you just expect it to get rejected.
Right.
I'm that way. And then you're just excited when it actually gets funded.
Yeah. I like that. That's how I
don't know if that's a good way to be, but that's how I usually feel.
I'm the optimist here, so I will contradict that statement.
But there are a lot of people are just so optimistic that, it's just going to be great.
I mean, but I look at it as you've already come up with a great proposal that you can take away with you, no matter if you get funded or not. So there will be some way you can work on it. Maybe not through NSF, but somewhere else. So I think submitting for a grant is a big achievement in and itself. And then the optimists basically look at it as they're always happy. So even if you get rejected, you're still keeping it moving. There's the next best thing coming. So... And your face says, I do not agree.
Yeah.
But it's okay.
You say that until you've faced as much rejection as you do as an assistant professor, and then you lose a lot of the optimism. And there's also not as many opportunities as you think there are.
That is why I'm not going into academia.
That is the hardest part, is the fact that you submit it, and then you wait 9 months. It's like a baby, you submit it, you wait 9 months.
At least you know the baby.
At least you hope the baby's going to come. But the problem with this is well, I don't want to go into that. There's a lot of places to go with that. It's dark. But yeah, so essentially you submit it, and then you wait. You hear nothing.
Yeah.
And then it's a no. And then you have to wait till the next time, which is that same year, to submit it again.
Yeah.
So essentially you submit one a year.
Why can't you submit to different grants? Submit to DOD, NSF, NIH?
It has to fit.
Well,
the problem is each thing that you do has to fit into what those things are interested in. So NSF is general, which means you can submit anything you want to NSF. Doesn't matter what it is, they'll look at it. DOE and DOD have very specific calls. They're only interested in very specific things. DOE is a little bit more general than DOD. DOD is straight. If they're not interested in it, they don't even want to talk to you.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it's difficult to find something that you're doing that is both interesting to the NSF, which is generally very fundamental, and to the DOD, which is generally much more applied. So a lot of times the same proposal or the same proposal structure won't work. So you can't necessarily take the same thing and submit it to the other agency. And they also have very different funding mechanisms. So like NSF has this full proposal. You send a full proposal and it gets evaluated. DOE and DOD do these like pre-proposals or white papers. So you have to send a pre-proposal, and then the pre-proposal has to be invited for a full proposal. So they make the decision really at the pre-proposal stage, whether they even think about considering it.
Interesting.
And DOD is even worse about that. You have to not only submit a white paper, but you have to actively pursue the person you want to submit the white paper to, and finding that person is often very difficult. So I had a white paper that went from, I sent it to the Navy. And then the Navy looked around, they sent it to the Air Force. The Air Force looked around, they sent it to the Army. Army looked around and it just died. So it's very difficult to find the right person.
What about NSF versus NIH? Like you have fundamental science, but then medical applications.
They're
Can
also-
you tweak those and submit for both? At the
Not
same
really.
time? No.
No, I'm sometimes, but in general, they're very different too, because NIH is so much more applied than NSF. So I mean, sometimes you can take half of an NIH proposal and have it be an NSF proposal.
Okay.
You know, because there's some aspects of NIH proposals that can be fundamental, you know. But most of the NSF stuff, you can't really, there's not really much back and forth.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so the only one that I've been able to kind of balance between things is the silicon depolymerization stuff can fit both within DOE and NSF. So that kind of thing can bounce back and forth.
Okay.
But in general, most things can very easily. Yeah. And then you have all these other like grants that you can apply for. There's things like the state level, you know, and those are all different. And then essentially you feel like you have 100 different grants that you can't find anywhere to go. So,
Well, thank you so much for your time. We're gonna cut the audio and then we're
One
gonna
more
take
question.
questions.
One more
We're
question.
gonna. Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
One more question though. What musical instruments do you play?
so it started out in guitar. So 6-string guitar. So I played that from the time I was like 5 all through high school. I haven't touched a guitar, honestly, since I was in high school. So,
Okay.
and I played guitar in the jazz band in high school and middle school. And then I